And I can also say for all the girls, even if it looks intimidating and it looks like there's way too many boys in the industry, there's room for girls, and I would very much encourage a large number of very supportive boys in the industry and ask questions, and you will see how open and how supportive the community is, and you will be encouraged and surprised in many good ways, as I have been through my journey and still am. Hello from Olympic Airshow. We are on Sunday morning here, and I'm here with Renny Price, who is an airshow performer, but also aerobatic competency evaluator. And often the frequent question we are getting, how does one become an airshow performer?
Well, most of us, or a lot of guys and gals, come through IAC, the International Aerobatic Club, and one kind of leads to the other. And what we like about IAC, of course, is that you're coached all the time, and then you're judged by people, they're excellent evaluators. And then, off you go, maybe the air shows. I mean, it seems like a natural progression. But a lot of people, they just look at, air shows and say, hey, that's what I want to do. It's like looking at a rock and roll band and go, well, that looks like a good job to me. So, off you go and you do that. So, and then, of course, the military people come out and they still want to keep flying and, want to fly warbirds and those kind of airplanes. So there's, three main kind of streams, where we come from. And like yourself, you competed. You were a competitor, were you not?
I did compete a little bit, and I was also a flight instructor. So my first air show was not even about me. It was a local air show in Boundary Bay. And because they shut down all the flight schools for the day, it's like, well, do you want to show what you do as a local business? So that was basically showcasing our flight school for the first time. That was my first ever air show, and I had no clue what I was doing.
Yeah, well, join the crowd, because I was in the IAC and I was winning some contests. So the IAC wanted to be represented at the Oregon Rose Festival Air Show, was called at the time, and they said, hey, would you like to do it? And I said, sure. So I went and got my 800-foot SAC card and then went over there. And at that time, that show was drawing probably 35,000 a day. And you taxi out and you look at that and you go, oh man, what did I just get myself into? But you get hooked really quick because it's fun. And you get to fly with, and meet a lot of pilots that you never would have had the opportunity to ever meet. And, in my case, it was, some of the guys that, flew our spacecraft, specifically on, Apollo 8.
Wow.
And some stuff, guys like that. And that's always been the draw, for me, is you get to be around some incredible people that are really enthusiastic about flying. I came out of the airlines, or flew for the airlines for many years, and there's not much enthusiasm there after the first few years. And then, you get into the air show industry, and everybody's excited because it's a lot of fun, and you meet some great people.
And it's so inspiring too.
Oh, absolutely.
And I find it so inspiring, not just for us, it's every time inspiring for me to be at an air show, meet more experienced pilots, see how different aircraft fly and talking to people on the ground. But it's inspiring to see other people inspired and seeing the kids excited.
And you do a very good job at that, because I've watched, your growth, as you came into the industry and, and where you're at today, which is, you're flying at a very high level. So I'm suddenly that. I watch, the young women that come up to you and, well, how do you get into this, and you inspire them. And, we've done a lot of hot pits together, kind of like, we are today. And it's always nice to see how they come up to you and go, wow, I really like what you did. And so
And
I'm inspiring people, and that's great.
And I love sharing. So tell us, Renny, so somebody who did learn some aerobatics and they can maybe they have competed and now they want to fly shows, what would be the first steps and subsequent steps? So what would be the process?
Well, again, it's the same thing. I mean, I know you do other competitive sports, so coaching, of course, and training. Um, but if you're talking specifically how to get into the airshow industry, then you have to get, a good mentor, and we all have, people. I know in your case you used, Bud Granley and Ross Granley, and it doesn't get much, better than that.
I was
So,
very privileged.
yes. So, you find a good coach, somebody that, you not only trust that what I mean by trust is that you're willing to listen to. And when they tell you, you need to do this, and do it that way, it was really critical. Rather than, someone who is, that you're going, yeah, it goes one ear and out the other, you know.
That's definitely a lifelong learning. And I find that even after being certified and being allowed to fly and having flown, it's always learning.
Yeah.
Like yesterday was a steep learning curve with all the weather changes and being ready to go and adjusting to the winds.
And you did great yesterday and the day before because, the weather here in Olympia this weekend was challenging. With up to 20, 25 miles an hour in the box itself at altitude, which means the airplane's drifting. And
How many feet per second was it drifting, I think?
1 knot is equal to 1.8 feet per second.
Okay.
So at 30 knots, you're drifting 60 feet per second. Now that's rounded up a smidgen.
Obviously, yeah.
But the 60 feet per second, you think about that, if you've got a 10-second line, you've moved 600 feet. So, and the boxes we're flying in are, small as so that, it's a lot of wind. And you did great, especially because you're really moving. You're up there, you're doing what, 110, 120?
My entry speed to most of my maneuvers is around 140, 160 miles per hour. And my verticals are not very long, but that was enough for me where I would start at 1,000-foot line and I would be doing my hammerhead down on a 500-foot line. So I definitely saw them drift.
So the idea there is the count is there's Anna's airplane right back there, and she may be on that vertical for 5 seconds, so she's moving 100 feet. Some of the other airplanes, like the Sukhoi, can be on that same line for up to 10 seconds. So you're moving 400 to 500 feet while on the vertical. So where you look and you pull is a long ways away. Sukhoi Su-29. These airplanes were built in Moscow, Russia. And Sukhoi, the other airplanes they build are, again, our adversary. But the airplane was designed to fly competition aerobatics in the mid-'80s. And it was originally designed as a single-seat airplane. And they finally decided, oh, well, we might want to give the pilots some training. So they...
It's an afterthought.
Yeah, they added the front cockpit to it. And which is a little unusual.
But you're flying from the back when you're by
Yeah,
yourself,
the
right?
instructor actually sits in the front, and the pilot in the back because the cockpit and the wing sight picture is the same as the 26. And anyway, it was built to be an trainer for the Sukhoi 26. During the 80s and most of the way through the 90s, the Russians were able to win all the gold medals in aerobatics, which was their goal, and they were going up against airplanes like this Eagle in the pits at the time. So it was a giant leap forward. And then we started building airplanes like the Giles 200, which became what we know today as an MX2. So.
I didn't realize the Giles was
It is.
MX.
Yeah, the 200 became the 202 when they made it a two-place.
Okay.
And then the company kind of fell apart, and unfortunately, but they picked up the rights to the airplane, and they designed the MX comes off the 202.
What's the most challenging maneuver you do in this plane?
These airplanes they were built to snap roll and do competition aerobatics. They do that very good. They don't care whether they're right side up or they're upside down. But it's a fairly large airplane for a competition aerobatic airplane. And they don't like to tumble. They will tumble, but they won't tumble like with a Giles or an MX or an Extra or just about anything else, that does that really good. So, I've got some tumbles that work pretty good and, some that just aren't as spectacular as what you see, Bill Stein and Rob Hall and, those guys are able to do with those super monoplanes.
Well, when we watch you, it looks very spectacular.
Well, I appreciate that, but I've got to watch it from the cockpit, so you're your own worst critic, of course. But
And you probably know all the details as you fly that are not very visible from the ground. So this is part of the safety training that we don't see as it's happening, and it's so important to have a more experienced person to probably even fly with you, somebody who is started to fly, not only have the videos or watch from the ground.
yeah, well, again, you're going back to coaching, and that's what's nice about a two-place airplane. For example, well, Bill Stein, right?
Of course.
And I asked Bill, I said, I'm not getting this pinwheel figured out in this thing because it just won't do it like the other airplane. So he said, I got an idea, let's go fly. So Bill jumped in it, and it was very helpful. We got it to where it started working with the airplane. So, again, it goes back to where do you start or what do you do in between? Well, you find somebody that's, really good, and you go to them, and, you try to get their input on it. And then also, what's a little different, well, it's no different than when you're skating, right? is, you have to have somebody watch you, and say, improve that, or,
You don't know what you don't know, right? And that's
exactly.
To kill you.
That's exactly right. And that's a very good way to put it. And it's the same here. But, you need coaching, you need a good mentor.
And don't ever think you are too good to ask for an advice. I keep asking questions and stupid questions all the time.
There's a saying, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. Get out, because that's not good,
So to wrap it up, what would be your advice to new pilots, new aerobatic pilots, and then somebody who even looks to get into aviation?
Well, I think getting into aviation, it's a lifetime endeavor, but it's probably one of the most fulfilling things you'll ever do. I mean, I'm 74 years old now, and I've been doing this since I was 19 years old, and I've never worked a day in my life, So, there's that part of it. And again, it goes back to find a good coach, somebody like yourself, and a mentor, to help bring you in. And again, as you alluded to, is just, keep learning. You're never, ever going to figure it all out. And that's the beauty of it. I've flown this airplane for over 20 years now, and I'm still finding stuff I can do with it I didn't know it would do. And it teaches me all the time. So
thank you so much for sharing, Renny.
You're welcome, sweetheart.
And I can also say for all the girls, even if it looks intimidating and it looks like there's way too many boys in the industry, there's room for girls, and I would very much encourage a large number of very supportive boys in the industry, and ask questions, and you will see how open and how supportive the community is, and you will be encouraged and surprised in many good ways, as I have been through my journey and still am. All the best, and have a safe show.
You too.